Welcome, friends. My name is Avinash Gorakshekar, and I welcome all of you to another interesting episode of Konexio HighFlyers. Friends, in these episodes, we introduced emerging companies from emerging sectors. And in this process, we talk to the promoters of such companies so we can understand their company's operations in a much better way. We obviously, ask them very pertinent questions about their business model, their growth journey, and future growth, possibilities. And in this process, we get enlightened by the promoters themselves. And today, friends, we got a very interesting company which is going to hit the SME capital market very soon. The company's name is ABS Marine Services Limited, and we have the pleasure and satisfaction of having the top management team with us. We have Captain Jeevan Krishnan Sanjeevan, who's the whole-time director of the company. Captain Jeevan, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and I'm pretty sure that in this small interaction with us, we'll be able to understand your company's operations in a much better manner.
Thank you, Avinash. Good evening to everybody, and thank you for inviting us and giving us this opportunity to talk about our company.
Okay. So, Captain Jeevan, first question, which is very elementary in nature. If you could tell us, what is the business model of ABS Marine Services? What kind of activity does the company do? And typically, if you could tell us three segments, which the company operates. I believe you all are into ship management, port services, and other allied activities. So if you could tell us briefly about all these portfolios which the company manages, and also give us a small overview of how this business journey actually started for you as an entrepreneur. So if you could start now.
Right, sir. So ABS Marine Services began its operation way back in '92. So we are almost now 32 years old. And initially, when we started the company, sir, it was started by Captain P.B. Narayanan, who himself is a master mariner and a sailor, who did his sailing career in the Great Eastern Shipping Company. After finishing his sailing career, he came ashore and set up his own company. And initially, we started as a ship management company, managing third-party vessels, meaning for other ship owners, we manage the vessels. That is how the activity started. It started with the Great Eastern ships, their main fleet vessels and their offshore vessels. And over the years, since then, we have gained experience in managing various types of ships like bulk carriers, chemical tankers, passenger vessels, offshore vessels, scientific research vessels, and harbor crafts. The business model for ship management includes basically providing the crew for the ships, the technical management of the ship, that is the day-to-day operations of the ship, and commercial services also to the ships. And in that, if you dissect again, crew management is the activity where we have to recruit and place trained and qualified officers and crew on the ship. Like commonly known, we know them as captains and chief engineers, etc. We place them on board the ship and so that they can safely operate the ship on a day-to-day basis. Technical management is an activity where we carry out the machinery maintenance, the day-to-day machinery maintenance, the overhauling of the machineries as required, the procurement of the various spares, tools, and connecting them in various ports across the world to the ships so that these ships can operate non-stop. In commercial management of the ship, what we do is we take care of the monitoring and execution of the contracts which the ship owners have entered into with various employers of the ship, while ensuring that the safety of the vessel, the insurance aspects, the compliance to various regulatory requirements in shipping is taken care of. That is what the commercial management looks into. Apart from the ship management, in somewhere along the line in 2004, ABS Marine also entered into ship owning. So ship owning is a vertical where we purchase our vessels and then we put them on employment on contracts with other employers of the ships like oil companies or ports, etc. Then we have another sector also, sir, where we give out allied services, marine services to various ship owners, ship operators, ports, etc. So these services basically include chartering, wherein we facilitate commercial contracts being fixed between a ship owner and the ship operator. We carry out ship inspections and certifications. We carry out supervising of new building ships and conversion of ships from one type of vessel to another type of vessel, or for project-wise conversions. We also engage in sale and purchase of ships. We also engage in supervising the dry docks of the ship. That is when once in 5 years, a ship is taken out of the water for major periodic repairs and maintenance in a dry dock facility. We also carry out a single point mooring buoy maintenance. Basically, it's a buoy which is where the big tankers come and make fast for unloading and unloading of the oil cargoes, where the drafts are of the ships are such that they cannot come to a berth alongside. We also have a port services where we give pilot boats, security boats, harbor tugs, fire trucks with firefighting personnel, the mooring services, oil spill response services to the ports, and all those things. So this is how we came about, and this is where we are right now, sir.
So fine. I think Captain Jivan very nicely articulated by you. Now tell me one thing. Amongst all these services like ship management, ship ownership, port services, marine services, now which is the segment which you think is the fastest growing segment? And typically, in each of these segments, how is the company positioned? If you could tell us briefly, what is the kind of opportunity also in terms of the market opportunity over the next say 3 to 5 years? How do you see this opportunity growing as a whole for the economy as a whole, because India has a vast coastline and there's a huge upside for these kind of service providers like our company. So what is the kind of opportunity for our growth over the next say 3 to 5 years in totality?
So opportunity wise, there is significant opportunity. I think we primarily see opportunity and growing in 2 to 3 sectors. Ship owning, I think, is a fast growing segment. Like you correctly mentioned, India has got such a vast coastline, but India does not feature in even in the top 10 ship owning nations. We are not there. So I think there is a big push from this government, a lot of initiatives from this government taking shape in the last 5 years we have seen. Going forward also, I think that this push will continue from the government to make India one of the largest shipbuilding and ship owning nations. So government of India is taking significant steps in this direction. For example, there is a big push from the government for in the shipbuilding sector. There's also a big push from the government where government is planning to set up a focused India Maritime Fund, where funds will be given for ship owning and shipbuilding on a long-term basis, and categorizing this sector as an infrastructure sector. So the biggest problem in ship owning that we all face is getting the capital to buy ships and own ships and build ships. It's a capital-intensive industry, and typically the Indian banks are not aligned for lending money for this sector on a long-term basis. So typically banks are giving 3 years, 5 years, 7 year loan, which is not enough compared to the life of the vessel, which itself is about 30 years as per Government of India rules. So I think with this push from the Government of India and with the funds coming in and the banks aligning themselves and all, I think there will be greater push, greater incentive for Indian ship owners to own ships and build ships also in India. Thereby, I think that particular segment will be a fast growing segment and an important segment, and we are very much focused on that. Plus, the ship management sector is also something which will grow because there are still a lot of opportunities, because there are a lot of people who want to buy ships but don't want to do the day-to-day operations of the ships. So that is where we come in and give a niche services, and which we have been doing for last 30 years now. And I think that sector also will continue to grow and will continue to be the backbone of our company going forward also. Also, I think in the port services sector, India has been developing so many ports, and the port services sector, the infrastructure in the port is going to grow. So allied services in the port, like mooring services, firefighting services, trained fire personnel in the ports, especially in the ports which are handling petroleum products and gases. All these services are also going to, the requirements are going to increase. And we see that more and more ports are now outsourcing these requirements rather than doing everything in-house. They are having the landlord model right now, and they will continue. More and more government ports also will start following the landlord model, and I think we will have some increase of scope in there also. So these are 3 sectors I think where we will be focusing on, ship owning being the primary target for us.
Fine. I think Captain Jeevan very well understood by me. Now tell me one thing. Normally, when we take orders, for a ship management or port services, are these orders at least for the next 2 to 3 years? Are these contracts slightly, longer term contracts where some sort of revenue visibility is assured for our company?
Yes, sir. Most of the contracts that we engage in are term contracts. In the ship owning sector, we normally enter into contracts ranging from 3 years going up to 9 years also.
Okay.
So for the oil and gas sector, we go the contracts are for 3 to 5 years. In the port sectors, we are seeing contracts of 7 to 9 years. So that is how
Okay.
in the ship owning sector we're going. All the other services like ship management, we normally get 3 year contracts. The allied services, the marine services that we do with the ports and all are also about 3 year contracts. So generally, all contracts are minimum 3 years and upwards.
Okay. Now, when you say 3 years to 9 years, Captain Jeevan, then typically the main cost I believe is the diesel cost, to run these ships. So in case there is an increase in the diesel cost, is this a pass through for the company, assuming that diesel prices go up? Is the company able to recover them, or is this a fixed price contract where you all have got to manage the ship very tightly in terms of cost management? So if you could tell us on this.
You're right in saying that one of the most important costs, other than the cost of the ship itself, is the cost of the fuel to run the ship, which is very right. So, but most of the contracts that we enter into for ship owning sector, generally the contracts are contracts where the fuel cost and the water cost, etc., are on the account of the employer, or we call them as charterers of the ship. So this is taken care of by the charter. So any variation in the fuel cost will not be an impact for us. In the ship management cost also, in the contracts also, the fuel is on the owners. They have to. So we are not the owners, and as a ship manager, we are not the owners. We are only managers. So the owner has to bear for the fuel cost, and any fluctuation in the fuel cost is on them. In the port sector also, the contracts that we are running in the long-term contracts, like 7 to 9 year contracts, there also the cost of the fuel is on the port. So they have to provide the fuel, whatever may be the cost of the fuel. So we are not impacted by the variation in the fuel cost on the long-term contracts, sir.
Okay. Oh, Captain Jeevan, tell me one thing that when you get these orders for 3 years or 9 years, are there any pre-qualification norms? Because giving a commitment of 3 years or 9 years is definitely a very big challenge. So when you get an order, is there any pre-qualification norm which the company has to enjoy before it applies for these tenders? Could just
Yes.
elaborate on this.
Yes, sir. So every contract that we enter into with a PSU or a government is tender driven, as is all the contracts, all government PSU contracts in India. So like in every tender, there are two pre-qualification criteria based on the value of the contract, estimated value of the contract, which is determined by the employer, the PSU or the port or the government. There will be a pre-qualification criteria for the financial criteria as a technical criteria. So financial criteria will comprise of turnover criterias, no loss in last 3 years, like that. They will put up financial criterias which a company has to comply. Net worth criteria is also an important criteria in all these contracts. After meeting the financial criteria, one has to meet the technical criteria. So technical criteria is contract specific. If, for example, if you're doing a ship management contract for a scientific research vessel, then the government will specify that the bidder should have previous experience of having operated or managed similar kind of vessels, and they will give a definition of the similar kind of vessels. So this is very pertinent in all contracts, where depending upon nature of activity that you're doing, there should be a past experience of having done such a work, and for which you have to showcase a lot of supporting documents, and they take verification from the past employers, and financial criteria also have to be met.
Okay. So, Captain Jeevan, indirectly it means that this is a very strong competitive moat which a company like us enjoys, because unless you have the exposure and the experience of handling this kind of business, it's not possible for a new entrant to come in this business and take away orders. So is my understanding right?
That's right, sir. That is primarily because of when you're given such contracts, most of the times the value of the assets that you are being asked to maintain and manage is equally high. So if you're operating a craft in the port, you have to have an experienced operator, otherwise you could end up having damages in the port, which will cost much more, which will be much more higher. If you're operating in the offshore oil and gas field, you have to have a qualified operator, because otherwise the risk involved because of any accidents, incidents, will be much higher. So every contract, because of the assets and the risks involved, these criteria are important and they are part and parcel.
Okay, so Captain Jeevan, one important question which I would like to ask you is that since these are 3 to 9 years contracts and you require a pre-qualification norm, as you mentioned, this means that the company has got a very significant moat. No newcomer in the industry can come straight away and get orders. You need to have experience, exposure in particularly handling such kind of contracts, and only then you are eligible to get this business. So, is my understanding right?
Yes, sir. What you said is absolutely correct. Because of the nature of the contracts and the jobs involved, there are two things I think most of the employers consider. One is the risk factor involved, and one is the cost of the assets involved, what for which we are being asked to execute the job. So, considering these two factors, every contract that we participate in, typically being PSU or government contracts, will have two criteria. One is the financial criteria, which comprises of various factors like turnover, net worth, no losses in the last over period of last 3 years, etc. And followed by a technical qualification criteria, where depending upon the nature of the contract, we should have had the previous experience of having carried out similar jobs. Then there is also a criteria which says that the size of the job, the previous experience should be this much. So all these criteria combining together only will make you qualified for a particular contract. So typically in a port sector, the risk involved in operating a craft in port is high. In offshore oil and gas sector, the risk involved in operating a vessel is very high because of the nature of the oil exploration activities. Similarly, when you are asked to manage a ship for a third-party ship owner, it's a very high-value asset, so managing it requires responsibility and experience. So these are very important criteria required for qualifying, and I think, like you rightly said, not so easy for a new entrant to participate in all these contracts.
So fine. I think Captain, you will now tell me one thing. What is the total fleet size our company enjoys? And a second question to this is that do we encourage buying refurbished ships? Because the time to get a new ship to actually deploy it with the client is typically large. So I mean, if you could tell us your thoughts, that is refurbished kind of ships which are used in our sector a normal part of the business, and what is the company strategy as far as this development is concerned? Do we also go for refurbished ships so that our cost is low, our speed to market also with clients is also much faster? So if you could please elaborate on this.
We diversified into shipping in 2004, and over the years we have done both. We have gained experience in purchasing, carrying out new building vessels and purchasing assets from second-hand tonnage market also. We have done both. Right now, our fleet, we basically diversified into ship owning in 2004 onwards. And over the years, we have gained experience in both acquiring new building tonnages, ships from the shipyards, and also we have experience in purchasing assets from the second-hand tonnage market also. Right now, we have a fleet of 5 ships, of which 4 ships are new build ships from the shipyards, and 1 ship is from the second-hand market. If you ask us what is the strategy going forward, I think if we are in the port sector, the company will prefer to build ships in India, which is in line with the Make in India policy of the government of India, which applies to the ports. In the offshore market, the company would prefer to buy assets from the second-hand market so that we can have the advantage on cost and delivery time. So as you know, to make a offshore asset, if you want to build new, it will take at least 18 months, 24 months for a new building ship to be fully delivered and ready for operations. We also find that, sir, going forward, the government of India, has recently been planning to set up a maritime fund to facilitate long-term, low-cost funding and provide an infrastructure status to the industry. So if this thing kicks off, and then definitely we will consider the option of building ships, new building ships also. Otherwise, I think at the moment our primary focus is to go in the second-hand market and acquire tonnages.
Okay. Captain Jeevan, if you could just tell us something about broadly which are the marquee customers we handle. Like typically, if you could share some names for the benefit of our viewers.
Yes, sir. So few of our current top end clients are Oil and Natural Gas Corporation of India, then followed by the National Institute of Ocean Technology. It's a scientific research organization based in Chennai. The National Center for Polar and Ocean Research from Goa, another scientific research organization. Center for Marine Living Resources and Ecology, another scientific research organization based in Cochin. All these organizations come under the Ministry of Earth Science. Chennai Port Authority is our client. Kamarajar Port Limited is our client. New Mangalore Port Authority in Calcutta, Shama Prasad Mukherjee Port, Sanma Shipping, another big ship owning company from Chennai. Lakshadweep Development Corporation, which operates the passenger vessels in the Cochin Lakshadweep sector. These are our top clients, sir.
Oh, fine. Understood. Captain Jeevan, now one important thing about our company's business is that how do we do things in a differentiated manner, in the sense that our profitability is improving, our business is growing. Now, if I were to ask you, in qualitative terms, not in financial data points terms, what is it that is differently done by us in a much more efficient manner? I believe execution is very important. Again, the track record of handling earlier projects is important, as you mentioned earlier. But typically, two three points which could highlight our USPs in this business, and that is why business comes to us in a much better manner, and we are able to deliver up to the client's satisfaction. So, if you could just share some thoughts on this.
Right, sir. So I think what makes us different is that you will find that there are ship owning companies, there are ship managing companies, and then there are companies which are in the harbor sector, focused only on the harbor sector, providing only harbor sector services. But we are quite different in the sense that we are a ship owner also, a ship owning company also. We are a ship management company also, and we also provide diversified services in the marine sector, including ports and other sectors. So we are not confined to one sector in the maritime industry. That is, I think, our USP, that we give numerous services under one umbrella, and we have been successfully doing this for the past 30 years without difficulty. And we have the complete team is become skilled to handle all these services under one umbrella, sir. And also we have gained the experience of managing very complicated assets like scientific research vessels, which are very big capital intensive assets owned by government of India. So these sectors give us a very, so we, I think we are in a very niche sector, having all these services coming under like as one umbrella, sir.
No, understood. I think very nicely articulated again, Captain Jeevan. Now, coming to your first 6 months data points, Captain Jeevan, I think I was seeing a dramatic increase in your profitability. At the net level, I think we have done about 13 crores plus. Our operating margins have also improved to 44%. Now, tell me one thing. First of all, are these margins sustainable? And secondly, what has been the reason for such a sharp improvement in profitability? If you could share your thoughts.
Yes, sir. So the reason for the increase in the margins is because of the new contract which we have entered into the government of India, which I think the full effects of that contract are reflecting in this particular year. So that is a Ministry of Earth Science contract where we are managing six state-of-the-art research vessels for the government of India. So that is one aspect of the increase in margins. And second thing is that we are using one of the chartered in vessels. We have secured a 5-year contract with ONGC, which also kicked in recently. So I think those effects are coming in for this financial year, and probably has contributed to the increased margins that we are seeing, sir. And I think going forward, sir, it is a sustainable one. And in fact, we are post IPO, we are focused on increasing all the numbers on the positive side.
Oh, fine, understood. Captain Jeevan, just one small clarification. See, the profitability at the net level has increased, but from a market standpoint of view, when you talk to financial analysts, they look at the operating cash flow. Now, I was observing that for the first 6 months, your operating cash flow is minus 57 lakhs. So can we assume that for the next 6 months, we could see cash flows getting positive and getting normal? Maybe in the first 6 months, there was a lot of, kind of working capital kind of, stress, or maybe some, stretching was there in the working capital side. On this, can we assume that the next 6 months could be much better than the first half in terms of operating cash flow?
Yes, sir, absolutely right. See, when the actually Ministry of Earth Science came up with this contract, it's a new concept contract where they clubbed all the vessels under the various institutions under the ministry into one single point contract. So it was a new thing for the ministry also. So after the contract was awarded and the vessels were taken over, it took some time for the ministry also to to get the finance in the execution part of the contract. So there were the working capital cycle increased slightly due to that factor, and also the turnover also has been increasing quite a bit. So considering that, the working capital cycle has also increased. But now going forward, the all the execution part of the contracts are now well set. And apart from some periodic dry docking expenses, we do not see any major hiccup in the working capital cycle. In fact, we are looking at reducing the working capital cycle, which will increase our operating cash flows also going forward, sir.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Captain Jeevan, now just wanted to get a flavor that, you said margins could possibly be sustained, these kind of margins of 43, 44%. Could you share with us, whatever data is available with us, because I believe our business is order book driven. So, in a very small sense, if you could tell us what is the kind of order book we have, which can give us the kind of revenue visibility for the company over the next, say, 12, 15 months. Because typically, your comparable peers also operate on an order book basis. So if you could give us an idea, what is the order book which you currently have as a confirmed order book, which can give us an idea about the kind of growth we can record in FY24 and 25.
Right, sir. So the confirmed order book that we have at the moment is about rupees 100 crores, which is from Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, which we are expecting to commence in the next financial year, the first quarter. And further going ahead, I think we are expecting, we have participated in a couple of other tenders also, for which the results will be, I think, coming forth in the first quarter of next financial year, which will take up our order book. And I think we are endeavoring to increase our turnover by at least around 40%. And I think our EBITDA margin also, I think, will grow around 10 to 15% based on that, sir.
Captain Jivan, one more thing now, which is a very important question from an investor standpoint of view. We are going public. If you could share with us what is the size of the issue we are planning, what is the objective, for what purposes are we raising the money? Is it working capital or is it any asset acquisition? If you could tell us briefly on the capital market offering which the company is coming out.
Yes, sir. So the primary objective of coming into the public sector, public market, is to raise funds for acquiring an asset. As you know, sir, it is a very capital-intensive industry. Ships are inherently expensive, be it a new build ships or be it a second-hand tonnage. So we require a lot of funds for acquiring an asset. So that is the primary intention. And apart from that, we have allocated some part of the proceeds for working capital requirement and general corporate purpose also. We have just filed the DRHP, sir, and the rest of the details on timing, issue price, etc. We are waiting on that, sir.
Okay, understood. Captain Jeevan, now just one other elementary question. You mentioned that working capital cycle is now getting normalized. But typically in our business, what is the kind of working capital cycle? You deal with a lot of government companies, government ports, private customers. So typically, just to understand the working capital cycle, is the working capital cycle similar for both private as well as government customers, or is it slightly different from each other? If you could just tell us the broad working capital cycle, right from the time you get the contract, you execute it, and when do you get the payments from your customers?
You rightly said, sir. So that working cap, the payment cycle from different clients is different. The payment cycle from the PSU clients are much faster. It is about 30 days in arrears. The payment cycle from the governments is much more on the slightly on the higher side, about 45 days to 50 days. So average, if you could take an average working capital, we could say it's around 60 days in the beginning of this in this financial year. I think going ahead, I think in the next year, next financial year, we are looking at bringing down this working capital cycle to 40 to 45 days.
Okay. Okay. Understood. Captain Jeevan, now one important question, from a investor standpoint, you all have, you all are going public after almost 32 years of, building this company. Now you all are going to, start a new growth journey for new investors and new growth partners who are going to join you. So, on a very broader basis, what would be your message to such shareholders in the long term? How would you be adding value to these shareholders? I mean, everybody in the capital market comes to earn, positive returns. But from a longer standpoint of view, how can long-term wealth creation, be managed from your side? So if you could share your thoughts and a small message, for the new incoming shareholders.
Right, sir. So shipping is also a cyclical business, sir. And over the years, we have understood this market very well, and we have understood how to handle the cycles very well. There is a high cycle, there's a low cycle, and we have become adept. Though we can't predict which cycle will come when. Whenever a cycle comes, we have learned how to get the best of the cycle and how to prevent the worst of the cycle from affecting the operations. So this experience, I think, puts us in a very good wicket to face the market and expand the ship owning business after having understood the nature of the beast, I would say. So I think going forward, the company is well poised to increase its ship owning footprint. And going forward, we would like to become one of the top ship owners in the country. Not only in terms of the size of the fleet or the tonnage that we own, also in terms of efficient younger vessels, efficient vessels. Going forward, we will look at ESG compliances. We also would like to look at the decarbonization goals being set by the United Nations, IMO, and the Government of India. So achieving all these things, we want to grow holistically, not just focus on growing the number of ships just to have 10 ships or 20 ships, but every ship that we bring in should add value to the company, should bring in profit for the company, should be add further value to all the shareholders in the company. So we'll be very focused, and we will not be going on a rampant of buying X number of ships. Very focused ship owning and very focused ship management. Ship management also will be very focused on what kind of ships we'll be managing and with whom, for which owners we will be managing. So we are very focused on managing niche vessels and niche sectors, not just any sector and everybody is doing. So all these capabilities that we have garnered over the last so many years, I think will help us in taking this growth to the next cycle, sir, and adding value to everybody and creating wealth and profits for everybody.
No, I think very well articulated again, Captain Jeevan. Now, last question, Captain Jeevan. See, I think if you leave out COVID, I think our company is one of those companies, which has got a well diversified, kind of revenue base. We've got ship management, ship ownership, port services, marine services. So tell me one thing, that in so many years, what has been your experience in managing risk? Because, even during COVID, I believe, our kind of company obviously operated in, those kind of, challenging conditions. So typically, what has been your experience in managing risk in so many years? And what is the single most risk in our business, typically, which actually impacts our business? If you could just share your thoughts on this.
Right, sir. The single most risk factor, I think, would be the cyclical nature of shipping, sir. So, market cycles pervade the shipping industry. So for that, it is important to begin, by understanding the shipping cycle. It is an interaction between supply and demand in the maritime transport sector. Supply always lags behind when there is an extreme demand. So in this situation, the industry has to adapt the shipping fleet by expanding or contracting to this demand. Whenever there is a low cumulative demand, shipbuilding will slow down. Number of vessels will be idling, will be more, and number of vessels being sent for scrap to the scrap yards will increase. When the demand increases, which can be many factors, related to the world economy, supply is not able to quickly match it, and the freight rates will immediately go up, and then the shipbuilding will start resuming. Ultimately, there will be an oversupply, which then pushes the rates back down, because it takes about 2 years to build one ship,
Yeah.
at least 2 years, I would say. So this cycle is very typical in shipping. Reading the cycle is not very easy. It could be some luck and some experience, but how to manage the cycle is very important. However, it's also important to know that the cyclical nature of shipping will affect the different sectors in shipping differently. So how we manage this risk, how we have learned to manage this risk to a greater extent is that uh, we the ships that we own, we try to lock into term contracts on a fixed price contracts for a period of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. We become to a greater extent we become immune to that cycle. And in the ship management is not exposed to that cycle per se as a ship manager, because it is the ship owner is the one who will be facing it, but he has to still run a ship, so he will require a ship manager, and the ships have to be run in any case, in any market conditions. And the government contracts on the government vessels and all which we manage, so as you know, they are not exposed to this particular aspect of shipping, because they're government vessels and non-cargo vessels involved in scientific research and everything. So having different verticals has helped us support the company whenever there's a downside happening in another vertical, sir.
I think very well, nicely articulated again, Captain Jeevan. And I think thank you very much for sparing your valuable time with us. We could understand your company's operations in a much better manner. So please accept my best wishes to you, your entire management team, and best wishes for your forthcoming public issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Avnatji. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was wonderful talking to you, sir. Thank you.